Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at one I covered back when it was on Kickstarter, Adventure Tactics. Quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of the final game. I really enjoyed some aspects of Adventure Tactics back when I played the prototype, but other parts left me a little cold. Did they change or improve anything? Let's find out and get to the list. So I'm going to start off with a mix for my number 5, and this is something I don't usually focus on, and that's the components in the game. First, on the con side of things, you've probably heard about this if you've looked up other coverage of the game. There are some components that aren't as nice quality-wise. The biggest one are the player boards, which are these dual thickness boards you can put your life tokens in. They bow really badly, and I haven't been able to backbend them to kind of sit flat yet. The part that could also be pro or con is that there are just so many cards. And in the one way, that's kind of awesome because that's where a lot of the game's variety and life comes from. But it also can be a big chore to just search through all of these cards to find like a specific ability when you're leveling up or find a specific boss's activation deck. I also have a mix at my number 4, and this is kind of a dungeon crawling adventure game with a campaign, and that's why this is a mix. The campaign and the story is good in some ways and not so good in others. And on the pro side of things, the campaign moves quickly. It gives you little choices like little branches that can get you different rewards, but it's all kind of minor and really focuses on getting you back to the combat and the leveling and the fun stuff in the game. So if you loved Midara and want to have like a huge novel to read and pages and pages of text before each scenario, you're not going to get that almost at all here. Generally, there's just one little blurb of narrative and that's it. Now, it could also be a negative for you if you want to really feel invested in these characters and feel invested in the story. It's not going to do that for you. The story is very light. The focus is definitely on the gameplay. Now, some other things that might be negatives for you based on your taste is that the campaign is very linear, and thus I kind of question the full replayability of it. There are some bosses you'll only see on a given playthrough, so if you play through the whole thing again, you might see 3 or 4 or maybe 5 new encounters, but after 2 plays, you'll have definitely seen everything it has to offer. And I have another mix at number 3, that's 3 in a row, and this one I kind of lumped in all the stuff dealing with the enemies and the scenarios, the kind of boss fights you have in the game. And just to be clear, this is a game really in the vein of more recent games where they're kind of all focused on bosses. You don't have any encounters in this game where you just fight mooks. They all have some kind of unique thing, and that's a big pro for the scenario design. All the bosses are really diverse, like doing really crazy things. Now, the other side of this point is how the enemies activate and how the whole initiative order works. I think the activation is very quick, turns move very quickly, and the initiative order can be exciting, like seeing if the enemies are going before or after you draw it every turn, but there's also some negatives there. A lot of the bosses move in random directions each turn because there aren't really any touchstones for them to target in a lot of cases, so that can feel kind of unsatisfying, like the board is just kind of a blank slate, depends on the battle. And also, I personally didn't love the initiative system, but I also don't like the system in Aeon's End. I don't like where your turn can be at the beginning of one turn and at the end of another round, so you have a lot more downtime. Alright, number 3 is kind of a mishmash of ideas, but let's get to something more focused for my number 2, a full pro, and that's the card play and the actions you take on your turn. And I think this is a lot of fun. You'll generally have a hand of 4 cards, and there'll be like movement cards and attack cards, which will be based on your character class, how they function, and special cards you built into, and you can use any card to move, something I think is great, although you don't move as far as a full movement card, but they have some other cool elements, like you can have equipment cards, which are just like any other card, but you can kind of seed them on your board, and same thing with these class feature cards. So I like the idea that you can basically like save abilities or save actions for later so that your hand draw luck doesn't matter as much. They have free actions, so especially as you get later in the campaigns and the bosses are doing crazier stuff and you have cooler tools at your disposal, I think the core card play and action mechanics of the game can be a lot of fun and really tactically satisfying. And finally, my number 1, a huge pro, the best thing about the game. I can't imagine anybody playing it and not focusing in on this. And this is the leveling system. Because the idea is you add on levels of different classes, and you can eventually unlock these advanced classes with even crazier powers. And just the potential here for awesome combos, for playing the campaign through again and trying out a different type of character. That's really where I think the variety and replay of the game comes in. And just like kind of geeking out and looking at them is fun. fun. Like, oh man, next time, what if I go for this barbarian build? Or oh my gosh, I could be a beastmaster and have my own summons. It's really, quite honestly, one of the best and most fun level up systems I've ever seen in a game. So some things to be concerned about, there are some component issues. Some people might feel like the campaign doesn't have enough replayability or a strong enough narrative. And if your tastes align with mine, you have the potential to find the enemy activation and the initiative system kind of annoying. But the positives to look for here are the really fun card play and actions, the amazing leveling system, and just the sheer diversity and options available to you. I think it's a lot of fun, and especially for kind of more casual dungeon crawl fans, or for families or light gamers, I think this one could be a big hit. And if you'd like to see a full playthrough by Colin, click the link that just popped up. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.